When the Kargil War ended, you'd think peace was next on the agenda. But nope. What followed was something else entirely. The fight didn't just stop. It moved. It went from the icy peaks of the Himalayas right into the heart of crowded cities. And that shift changed, well, it changed everything. We're going to dig into that pivotal decade, a time that completely redefined the conflict and honestly explains a lot about what's happening even today.
Okay, so look at this. It really breaks down the before and after. And it's pretty stark, right? On one side, you've got the old way. Open warfare, soldiers fighting soldiers, usually way up in remote mountains. But then, the script completely flips. The new battlefield, it's a covert war, fought in the shadows. It's not armies anymore. It's terror groups, and their targets are civilians, right in the middle of where they live.
So, the big question is, how on earth did this happen? Well, that's what this first section is all about. We're going to look at the new strategy that was born from the ashes of a traditional military defeat, a strategy built entirely to be fought from the shadows.
And the key idea we really need to get our heads around is this thing called a proxy war. It sounds complex, but the concept is actually pretty simple and incredibly dangerous. Basically, you get someone else to do your fighting for you. A country can secretly back a war, fund it, even direct it, but because they aren't using their own soldiers, they can just turn around and say, hey, it wasn't us. They use these other groups, in this case militants, as their weapons.
And here it is, the playbook. It was basically a four-step process, almost like a formula. Step 1, train militants in special camps. Step 2, give them the money, the weapons, all the support they need. Step 3, send them across the border. And then, the most crucial part, Step 4. If anyone points a finger, deny everything. It was a system, and it was designed to be used over and over again.
So who were these proxies? Well, they were groups whose names would, unfortunately, become infamous all around the world. We're talking about organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Hizbul Mujahideen. These groups were essentially empowered to become the foot soldiers of this new, undeclared war.
Now, this wasn't just some theory on a piece of paper. This strategy had real, devastating consequences. In this next part, we're going to see exactly how it played out, creating a pattern of violence that would leave deep and lasting scars all across India.
Just take a look at this timeline. It's relentless. It kicks off in 2001 with an attack on the Indian parliament. I mean, the very symbol of its democracy. Then you see these attacks on major temples, which were clearly designed to stir up religious tension. And by 2006, it escalates to something even more horrific, the Mumbai train bombings, a mass casualty event. You can literally see the violence growing and spreading. And you know, what's so tragic about this period is that there were these glimmers of hope. You had peace summits, ceasefires were declared, new trade routes were even opening up. People were genuinely trying to build bridges. But then, every single time, a massive attack would happen and just shatter everything. It really showed just how fragile any hope for peace was. Which brings us to the one event that would become the horrific symbol of this entire decade. We're talking about November 26, 2008, the Siege of Mumbai. This wasn't just another attack. This was a turning point that changed absolutely everything.
Think about this number for a second, 60. For 60 terrifying hours, that's 2.5 days, just 10 men held one of the world's biggest cities completely hostage. The sheer scale and audacity of it, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. And the entire world was watching it happen, live on TV.
And the targets they chose were chillingly strategic. These weren't random spots. They hit the icons of the city, the famous Taj and Oberoi hotels, a cafe packed with locals and tourists, a Jewish community center, the main railway station. Each target was chosen to send a message, to terrorize not just a city, but an entire nation.
Then, in the middle of all this chaos, investigators discovered something that was just bone-chilling. The attackers weren't just acting on their own. They were on the phone, getting live, minute-by-minute instructions from handlers in Pakistan. And get this, the handlers were watching the same 24-hour news coverage as everyone else, using it to direct the assault in real time.
This time, there was a smoking gun. For the first time, the connection was undeniable. One of the terrorists, a guy named Ajmal Kasab, was actually captured alive. He talked, and through intelligence, agencies were able to pinpoint the mastermind, Zakiur Rahman Lakbi, a top commander for Lashkar-e-Taiba, operating out of Pakistan. All the dots were finally connected.
So, the Mumbai attacks were more than just a tragedy. They were a watershed moment. They forced India to completely rethink its entire security policy. A brand new doctrine was about to be born from the rubble.
See, what made this difference was the mountain of evidence. It was just overwhelming and irrefutable. We're talking intercepted phone calls, GPS data tracking the terrorist boat all the way from Karachi, actual voice recordings of their handlers, even serial numbers on their equipment that traced right back to Pakistan. The old strategy of plausible deniability was no longer an option.
And this right here is the single biggest consequence of the whole affair. For decades, India had a policy called strategic restraint. It basically meant absorbing blows without hitting back with full military force. Well, after Mumbai, that policy was declared dead. The era of tolerance was officially over.
And what replaced it was a new, clear, and totally unambiguous mandate. You can sum it up in 3 words: respond, strike, retaliate. The message couldn't have been clearer. If you hit us, we will hit you back.
And this wasn't just tough talk. This new way of thinking is the direct line to the military actions we've seen in more recent years. Things like the 2016 surgical strikes and the 2019 Balakot Airstrike, they were direct consequences of the decision made after Mumbai. The shadow war had now triggered a new era of direct confrontation.
So when you zoom out, that decade of terror completely changed the rules of the game. The long era of strategic patience had come to a decisive end. But it left the entire region and the world with a new and pretty unsettling question. What would this new era of retaliation ultimately look like?